It's Christine Wilson and Saphira Galoob, and you'll thank us later. Tune in every week and hang out with us because we're a lot of fun.
And no topics off the record, we decided. We are open to talking about everything together with a bit of a sense of humor, a lot of self-forgiveness, a lot of grace, and always being wiser on the other end. Bring it on, girls and boys.
You know what? You'll thank me later that I'm telling you about this. You'll thank me. They're going to hate us, Saphira. It's going to be nuts. Hey, guys. So good to see you. Hi, Saphira. Hi, Courtney.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning.
I'm really excited to be able to record today because I'm actually on the road. I'm in Boston, and you might notice that Nicole's not here. She is actually doing the work that I should be doing right now in Boston. We're here for an influencer event with a client. So she's down working hard while I'm up here with you guys, which is, I think I won in that one.
Well, tell her we said hello because we're always missing her when she's not here.
I know. Well, I'm really excited for this. This is our first episode where we're going to kind of have our normal cadence and what we're going to do. And I don't know, but it feels like it's been a lot of a week already, guys. How has your week been?
Mine has been pretty busy. Congress left DC, which means I get to go into a different rhythm. But even as you know, when you have your own business, even when the main business dies down, the other part of the business, which is running the business and growing the business and managing the business, is always there to remind you that you're an entrepreneur, not working for anybody else.
Exactly. And Courtney, you're holding down the fort. She's the woman in charge while Nicole and I are away. So how is everything going?
Good. It's funny. Today's like the first sort of almost nice day. And you guys know, just living in this area, that we've had in like 3 weeks. And I really do feel like those sorts of things affect the team. Like mentally, you can just feel it. The second we got on the call, like our Monday morning team meeting, everyone was just sort of quiet and down. And so, I think it's one of those weeks where you allow people to just have like their personal space, and meetings are short, and it's okay for people just to like take things slow. And hopefully, everyone will be perked back up by Monday. So we're good. We're hanging in there.
That rain is nuts. I've had enough. I mean, obviously, we know there's a big part of the country in a dire situation, and our thoughts are with all of them, especially the folks that are still waiting for support and help. Well, we have a big episode today. And when we first met and started brainstorming what the topics were we wanted to talk about, Courtney jumped right in with a question. I think that is a great thing. So I think we basically are ready to get into it. And, we think you'll thank us later. So, Courtney, why don't you kick us off with your question?
Yeah. So I thought about this when we were going through the planning of this podcast and trying to think of what questions that I would like to ask people who have experienced this. But growing up, especially as a young girl, you're taught to look forward to having kids, and it'll be the most amazing, beautiful thing that will ever happen to you. And I believe that's true. But as I've gotten older and talked with more people and watch people's experiences rather on Reels and TikTok, the biggest trend that I've seen is, yes, it is great and wonderful and beautiful and the best thing that's happened to me. It has also completely uprooted my life, and I am, for lack of a better word, like grieving the life I once had. How do I get back to that sense of independence? And maybe if I had just known, I could have prepared differently, or maybe just like proper expectations. I just would have not had this feeling of shock. And so that really resonated with me because I love my life and I love going out to dinner with my husband. I love seeing our friends. And I don't want to lose that sense of independence and exploration when I have kids, even though I'm eager to. So, my question for you both is just how you maintain that independence, and how do you feel like you can maintain that life that you had in addition to now kids?
Yeah. And we have kids in very similar ages. Our kids, as we mentioned, our oldest are friends. So, Saphira, I'll take first stab at this. I think you and I have very different perspectives. But I think I've mentioned before, I've lived always the very prescriptive life. Like, it's time to have kids. My friends are doing it, so I'm going to do it. And I wanted kids. I knew I wanted kids. And I grew up with 2. My husband had a brother, so we just expected to have 2 kids. I had some fertility issues, so they're a little bit closer in age than I would have planned. They're 2 years apart. I kind of wanted a little bit more like 3 years apart. But I really felt like there's a line in the sand where my life before kids and after kids. And I probably bit off all the traditional roles and expectations right away. My husband worked a very demanding job and didn't come home till late at night. So I was 99% child caretaker. I was nursing. I was doing all the laundry. I was taking them to every activity. And I also, you guys, I was at a music together class with my baby that was like 5 months old. I mean, what the heck was wrong with me? Like, I just wanted to do all the things. Like, the kid couldn't even sit up, never mind do music. I think he slept through most of the classes. I could go back and like just laugh at myself. But I did not, my life was not what it was before kids. I was not traveling. I was very stressed out. My working made me very anxious. I didn't want to leave. Cost of childcare was a lot. I think eventually I started my business just so I could see my children. And so part of me was like, when you first brought up this question, I was like, yeah, your life is going to change. It's going to be totally different. You are not regularly going to have date night and go out, and your money's all going to go to your kids. And I was in New York City a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling my sister about this, and she looked at me and she's like, well, that's your experience, but it's not mine. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, Christine, I live in New York City. I have a demanding job. I travel all the time. I have a son. I have one son, and we made that choice. And we really live our lives. Like, we do what we want to do. He comes to us to gallery openings. He goes out to fancy dinners, and we continued to live our lives. And I was like, that's crazy. That's not normal. I'm having that feeling. And I brought it back, and I was talking to you, Saphira, and you started to laugh.
Yep, I did. You do get some perspective when you talk to a lot of different mothers. Before we kind of get into where my experience is, that we can kind of bat back and forth about some of the things that we wish we would have done differently or wish we'd have known. I actually want to really compliment you, Courtney, on the question, because I think, societally, at least when I was having children, or even beforehand, there was this kind of stigma that once you had children, you had to like always articulate that it was like the best thing in the world. And people didn't have the courage to be like, this is terrible. I love my child. I hate my life.
Yeah,
I love
so
my
true.
child. I don't like my child. My marriage is different. My body's different. My job's different. And because of kind of just I married into a blended family. I always say I married an 8 and a 12-year-old when I married my husband 30 years ago. So they were 8 and 12 early on. And I didn't have a child until I was 36. And I was really ready to do so. But we'd kind of gone through that 8 to 10 to 12, gotten them moved along, and we shared the parenting responsibilities with their biological mother. And so when Luca, my son, was born in 2006 and I was 36, I was in a situation, and I'll say this, Christine, because I think it does hit on some things that you said. I was working in a law firm, and at the time, I didn't know a woman who was working, who had a child, who felt like she could be now this is full-time working in a law firm. At that time, I didn't know anybody who felt like they were a great lawyer and a great spouse and a great mother. They kind of were always feeling like something was always falling short. And for people who are a bit type A and overachievers, that's really a different dynamic. And so I actually made the decision to get out of an institution and stop like my work in an organization and have a child and have my own business, because I didn't want to kind of feel like I was subpar in all those areas. And as you're mentioning, like with your sister, I had one child, and I will say this, I didn't have a pet, which I know that sounds really, really silly, but
Yeah.
one child and a pet, and one child, not as bad as one child and a pet. 2 children and a pet, really hard. 2 children, really, really hard. But one child, that is like, it doesn't change as much. So we can talk a little about why and how that was. But I do think the composition matters, and animal composition is a part of it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Hugo is your baby, Courtney, right now.
Yeah.
And there's things you have to think about with him when you go out. It's all the more complicated. Well, I've got 2 kids and 2 dogs, so clearly I'm not going anywhere, and you guys are going to live your lives. But, you bring up something, and that was what my sister's whole point was. Like, we chose very deliberately to have one child. One child gave them the flexibility. One, it was affordable. They could live in New York City still. They could travel more. And they've raised him to be such a mature boy. Like, their expectations of him being able to be in places that kids might not normally have been brought were pretty awesome. And he's so cool because of it. Like, he knows so much about art, and he can talk to adults, and he's so clever. So he was really exposed to a lot of things that I think made it so that he's a lot of fun to have in those spaces. I think the biggest thing for me was that Facebook was really popular, right? So Facebook was emerging as I had my first child. And I basically got on there and I read everything that moms told each other they had to do. So you had to nurse. God forbid you use formula or a bottle. You had to use nature's, whatever, organic diapers, because no bleached diapers could touch your child. You had to do as much enrichment as possible. And I believed everything. I did it all. I literally went to Brazil with my 15-month-old and kept him on 2 naps a day. Like I was stuck in a hotel room most of the day because God forbid I interrupt his sleep schedule. There was no flexibility. I was so rigid and so into what the best thing was. And I'll tell you, these poor second children, by the second kid, you're like, okay, a bottle's fine. I'm like, and guess what? He's great. There's nothing that happened because he got some bottles with formula in it. So I didn't give myself pretty much any grace with the first child. And I think that is one of the biggest traps you can get into. Number one, your nursery does not have to be perfectly decorated or even set up by the time that baby is born. All of the things that you see, you really have to let that go. And then I think it's a deliberate decision with you and, your husband and with Chris to say, how do we want this to go? I also think your generation, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you have much more open-mindedness, you and Chris, about shared roles and responsibilities than I did. I was like, I'm the mom. I do all the things. I remember telling my husband, you can't even do it right anyway. Just let me do it. That's not going to work if you really want to be able to have flexibility in your life and to do those things. So,
and you don't want to have resentment against the father or the parent of your child.
Yeah.
You may think you're doing yourself a favor, but not a disservice.
Yeah. So I think that's a great conversation to have now. Like, hey, we're going to do this. I mean, Courtney, I will say one real benefit to you is one of the number one things that I've done with my business that you're a part of is I've tried to make it a flexible work environment. If you choose to continue to work, the conversation with me will be, what do you want? How will it work for you? What are the expectations in your time? Do you want to be able to work in the evenings when the baby's asleep? Do you, all
Right.
of that. I think those conversations and finding yourself a place to work where that can happen, I think Saphira and I both couldn't find it. So we had to create it for ourselves. That is my number one thing. I've always said from the very beginning, I did this for myself. Why would I then have my staff suffer? That's so dumb. The whole point of this was for anyone who works with me to be able to have that flexibility. Now that's harder to find. There are more companies, I think, getting smart about it. And sometimes maybe that is why being a consultant or doing something on your own is the most logical decision for a lot of people.
Well, Christine, you mentioned that you started with the Facebook and the Facebook was telling you all the things. I think one disadvantage that Courtney and her generation have is now it's not just Facebook showing, all of the kind of expectations of how to proceed. I mean, at that time, was it what to expect when you're expecting? I think that was
right.
So I just want to be clear. I didn't read any book. I didn't take any class. And I don't have Facebook, and yet my child did not die. I mean, so I also want to be clear. We did everything on demand. We never had a nap schedule. I did have a nursery because I thought it was cool. My child slept in it one night. My child co-slept with us, which of course, everybody I knew thought I was absolutely crazy. My child is so independent, speaks another language. He's couldn't be more ready to go off into his life. So here's what I would actually caution you against. I would caution you against what you see and believe to be the one way. The way forward is the way forward for you and your parent and the co-parent, their spouse, because every dynamic is so unique and every child is so unique. The other thing that I always thought was it always gave me a little bit of a chuckle. And, Christine, I'm actually, knowing your personality, I'm actually surprised that you were so prescription because you're so cool. And I have a lot of friends who had kids who were also prescriptors. They're also really tightly wound. I mean, everything was so I can't even describe how specific and obsessive compulsive they were with their child. And I have to tell you, those children didn't necessarily end up better. Their mental health wasn't necessarily better, the parenting situation. And I'm not saying it was correlative. I'm actually saying the opposite. I'm saying that the biggest surprise that a parent has is that you don't actually birth the child you think you're going to birth. And your child reveals him or herself to you, and that changes. And it is so humbling being a parent because the world may see you in a certain way, but the child also sees you in a way that they're going to see you. You may read, you may study, you may try to impose and impart and prescribe, yet that child paves their way the way they're going to. So you can fight it all you want, but I say go with it and let the child reveal itself to you. That's actually where you get the satisfaction. So I don't know that that's advice. It's just like things that I saw along the way.
I think you said two things that really resonated. Number one, and the biggest thing that I'm going to take away from this conversation is there's more than one right way to parent. But number two, it's helpful at a basic level to know how to keep a human alive, of course. But we're at a point now, and you sort of alluded to this, where it's like there's so much information, so many books, so many things. And at what point is it just so much noise? And, I think we can all trust that we're going to be, wonderful parents with like wonderful intentions, but like to just be able to block out some of that noise and go back to your gut, trust yourself, trust your intuition, because we can all do it. Even people 200, 300 years ago did it, right? So like, I think that's sort of helpful and calming to know, because you almost feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, or you anticipate you will feel it that way. And I think it's nice to know, hey, you can take it day by day. You can see how things go. Everything that you're hearing from all other people isn't rule, isn't mandatory. It's just advice. So it's interesting.
Well, and there's one other piece I actually think, and we're going to bridge this a little later in other later episodes. And it's interesting because now we're early on in our podcast, and I've been sharing with my friends who know me, like my bio, and talking about this whole concept around self-care and taking care of yourself first. I even had a bit of a heated conversation with my husband about whether or not being a woman and prioritizing self-care is the same thing as selfish, and is selfish being a good or bad attribute. And mothers are tended to be selfless. I actually think, and this is a hindsight, and I would be so curious, Christine, about your experience, and we think we should also stress test this, that I think one of the best gifts that you can give to your child over the years is be a very healthy human being yourself, which means you've got to take care of yourself mentally and physically and emotionally, because you are a mirror to your child, and your child is a mirror to you. And if you are anxious, your child is anxious. If you are not taking care of yourself, you're not modeling taking care of yourself for your child. And they will choose people who do not take care of themselves in terms of their lives, and they will not have healthy peers. So I actually think while many people kind of on first glance may use that selfish word, self-care is not selfish. Self-care is an attribute that we should be complimenting each other on and supporting each other to achieve.
And I think it was a big thing that I was like, this sounds so crude. I got off on how much I sacrificed. It was like big check mark. Like, I've been nursing this kid for 19 months. I haven't slept through the night in 19 months. I'm a badass mom. I'm doing it all. My husband works and he's not around. I've changed 10,000 diapers. And it was like, who cares?
I was saying, where's the award and the trophy on your mantle for that, sister?
No, I bought into the whole wrong narrative.
Does your child yell at you any less? Does your child complain any less? Does your husband complain any less? I can tell you, hell to the no.
Well, the best part is when I throw it in everyone's face. My husband will say something like, yeah, I already did that. And I'm like, but I breastfed your children for years. And he's like, oh, come on. Like, what are you going to do at this point? Like with this?
What have you done for me lately?
I'm like, I sacrificed. First of all, by the way, I loved breastfeeding. So part of it is that's a little load of bullshit that I'm putting it on other people that I sacrificed because I really enjoyed it. So, take it for what it is. I did not prioritize self-care until later. And then the other bad thing on that, Courtney, is that you set up your partner not to expect you to take care of yourself. And then if you start doing it out of the blue, they're like, wait, why are you spending all this money on like massages and time for you and meditation? And you're like, well, because I'm going to have a nervous breakdown if I don't. So, I think one of the biggest things I would say, Courtney, and I'd love to have you follow this up in a later episode, is I would love for you and Chris to take some time and sit and talk about, one, kind of what do the roles look like once you have children? Two, what are your biggest priorities of things you love in your life right now that you want to maintain? What are the things that you're going to protect? And three, I'd love to hear kind of, your expectations for what you want for your level of responsibility in the child rearing phase. You may not, it may not work out the way you think, but I just would love to know, because I just went into it so blindly without even considering it. And I know Chris has a demanding job. He has the same demanding job that my husband had. So I know that you're facing that same pressure, but I think you're coming into it with just so much more open-minded and even asking the question I just never even thought to. So I would love, as you explore this over whatever time you explore it, I'd love to hear kind of where you all shake out on things and what you're going to do. By the way, I will babysit for regular date nights because there's nothing better than a newborn that I don't have to get up with all night.
You might get to get up with that newborn all night as well. But I also think would be interesting is after they do that, she could come back and say, how did you all handle travel? How did you all handle sex? How did you all handle familial responsibilities? How did you all handle dividing the holidays? And I think that piece there, one of the things that I think it's important for anybody who's had experiences that others have not, is that those of us that have had experience, we shall not should on people. You should do this. You should not do that. Because shoulding on people is, one, you don't know what they're doing, you don't know what their situation is, but we can experience share. So for example, Courtney, you mentioned travel. We maintain travel for our child. I mean, literally as if it was the exact same before as after. And Christine can talk to you about how she incorporated having active children. I don't have the activities that Christine had and how she manages that with what they're doing now and where we wish we would have made different mistakes in the structuring either responsibilities or even like deciding how many activities to give your child. Because, we live in a pretty competitive environment and the Joneses, the keeping up with the Joneses, and is your kid doing travel and is your kid doing that? And aren't they playing an instrument and aren't they doing this extracurricular? That is real. It's real.
It is. And Courtney, I can caution you, just make it what you find that your family finds the joy. Mm-hmm. That is an easy thing to fall into. I don't know how many of my friends think their kids are going to the Olympics, but there's plenty of them. They think they are training. They've got to be training for the Olympics at the rate they're playing these sports. I've been much more of the explore your sports and activities. So they've had a lot, but I've let them stop, change, move, do what they want, turn it on, turn it off, because I've had probably what I consider proper expectation. They're probably not going to be Olympians or professional athletes. So they should be able to try and enjoy it. And if they're not enjoying the sport anymore, I don't want them to suffer. I'm not forcing them.
They use the word, my child isn't quit. They're like, no. What you're teaching your child is to prioritize happiness. So you stop and pivot. If you force your child to sustain and maintain and continue something that does not bring them joy, their mental health is at risk, their inability to make decisions, to set up their own life to give them the most satisfaction. You're not even modeling that for them. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster, for sure.
I was at dinner last night with a friend, and we actually had a conversation about setting up a relationship with another family that your child is a friend with their child, that you back and forth will exchange things like overnight sleepovers and things when you might have a trip or travel or things that come up. And you're available to each other. So it doesn't feel like you're just always like, especially like if your parents don't live in the same area and you can't just have overnight babysitters. But it's an expectation that like, hey, we both have a business trip at the same time. Can Declan spend the night at your house? And they can say the same with their child when they have something. That's been a lifesaver for us. We kind of have a family for each of the kids that's expected and known. And it took a lot of pressure off my parents to always be available. Mm-hmm. But Courtney, that's a whole other conversation. Like, do you live near your parents or Chris's parents? Is that even an option?
I mean, that's a really good point about having, and luckily we do have a lot of friends nearby because both Chris's parents and my parents are not close. And frankly, they live in states that we just don't really want to live in. So we're fortunate to have a lot of friends nearby from college, and I hope that they all stay close by. But I think that's great advice to open up that door and do each other favors and lean on each other, because for both of us, like our parents just really aren't close. Yeah, that's a good point.
The other thing is, Courtney, when you have that newborn and someone does offer to babysit, trust that they can handle it.
Yeah.
I didn't. Nobody could take care of my baby. Nobody. It was so stressful. I was the only one who could nurse. I didn't want bottles. I couldn't leave. Do not do that to yourself. It is such a mistake. And obviously you don't want to leave your child with somebody you meet on the corner one day, but you make a logical decision that there's someone that you can trust, and you've got to be able to, that should be part of that planning of like, we are going to be able to get away. Now, I will say, can we talk about really quickly finances? because the finances do change, right? There is a lot of expense that comes with children. That can be also a choice of how much goes to children. But it is going to change some of that extra money that you could do. And you could say, oh, we're going to add a deck on the back, or we're going to go on this trip, or we're going to, the finances are different. You will have new expenses that become a pretty major line item. So I don't know. I mean, Saphira, how did you juggle all that? Because that was a big test for us.
Yeah, we didn't have any childcare. We kind of balanced it between the two of us. I would say having my dance business, having a Middle Eastern belly dance business with a standalone building in Arlington was impressive, but doing it with an infant and no childcare, no parents, that was my miracle.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Let me just tell you, I used to have kind of a drive-through around because it used to have almost it looked like it could have like a dairy serve could have come out. It was an old brick building. And there was a lane. And at that lane, I could grab the Wi-Fi. And my son used to sleep in the car. So I would drive him around and then I would pull up to that spot and sit for 2 and 3 hours and do my work there because that's where I could make it happen. Right. And he would just sleep in the back.
I love that.
But for sure, once the childcare piece is, I think I heard a statistic that childcare is comparable to a house payment now. So, I mean, I think that is so significant. And then the choice between schools and where you put your child in school can be tens and thousands. I mean, I know people have taken out second mortgages on their house to have their children in private schools. I mean, that's a whole different conversation. And I guess we will see at the end of whether those parents spent that money was well spent or not. I think the jury's too out, but I definitely have my opinions there. But especially when we live in a place where like top schools in the country. But the other just reality around activities are crazy expensive. Camp. I cannot believe how expensive summer camp is.
Oh my God.
And then to put money away for college. I mean, you and I are both in it right now. In-state tuition between $15,000 and $20,000 a year, that's considered a bargain for in-state tuition. And even if you start saving early, it can feel pretty, unless you have, kind of multiple people in your family saving, or you're just one family does really well. I wish we'd have saved more.
Oh yeah, me too. We did not save enough and we thought we were ahead of the game on it. I'm actually, by the way, going to a session on Sunday night all about going to school in London. Yeah. So, I think Saphira and I both are encouraging looking at international opportunities because I do think, that is a huge thing. But I think that just the finance thing altogether, Courtney, is really something to have a conversation about because it will change what you can do with your free time and with your expendable cash. And shockingly, you'll think, we do really well together. We're making great money. It'll be plenty. And then it was like every year I was like, geez, Louise. I mean, I've sent my kids to camp at $4,000 for each kid. And you're like, well, I mean, that's huge. We had an au pair. We had a live-in nanny. We had nannies that came and went. I had a part-time job and tried to do it on my own. It is so expensive. So those are some of the conversations definitely you want to have. Now, I will say on the other end of this, it is so wonderful to be a parent. I love it. I love my children. I'm so glad I did it. Every day, my husband was more reluctant about having children, and I basically told him I'd leave him if he didn't have them. And so, but he says to me all the time, thank you so much for making sure we had children. Thank you so much. We respect so many of our friends who've chosen not to have children. I'm like, they go on the best vacations. They have so much fun together. But there are days where I get up and I'm like, I'm really glad I have part of my purpose today is raising these men. That's it just gives me a lot of happiness and joy. And I'm glad that it's part of my life dynamics. So I don't want to just be like, oh, plan ahead. It's a lot. Have we scared you more than we've helped you here?
No, I was going to say the opposite. I really appreciate just transparent and honest conversations about it. If anything, it just made me feel better. And I think that's sort of half the battle of the question prompt that I brought up is just we should just talk about this more openly. And I actually think it would make people feel better. And it's done that for me. So no, it's been great.
I say one other thing I think to kind of take it away from the kids and then back to us and really the theme of the show, which is we're a couple of decades ahead. I think we're probably a couple of decades ahead of the people who are listening to us. I don't know. There may be some 50-something women to see how I did it, just to be like, I did it better.
I did it better.
I did it better. I'm like, good for you. But the other kind of really, I don't say surprising thing, but something I wasn't expecting was my 54-year-old self is so different than my 24-year-old self. They say that your body changes every 8 to 10 years. My whole personality changed. My disposition changed. The way I interact with the world, my marriage has changed. And so this idea that the person you are now with the partner you are now and the child you are now, that is an evolving. And the goal is that the family unit grows together. The tricky thing, of course, is when people don't grow together. But I believe, again, that each individual in the family, including the child that you train to be this way, has to kind of think about what their needs are and assure that their needs are being met. I sincerely do not believe that you can count on other people to meet your needs. You have to tell them what your needs are, but you have to take primarily responsibility. And I think you have to teach your children to take responsibility to meet their needs. They can't look at the world and expect the world is going to meet their needs. And they cannot look at a partner and say, okay, this person's just going to meet my needs all the time. It's like, and again, maybe that word's selfish, but I just think it's more of a personal responsibility thing. And that's been my experience, for better or for worse.
My husband has a nickname that he goes by. His name is Oj. His real name is Joe, but I call him Oj. I hope he doesn't take this as a negative thing. But I'm going to say I set and I delivered improper expectations for a large chunk of our marriage. And now that I'm pushing back on that, he's feeling frustrated. And I'm resentful of him.
Mm-hmm.
He's frustrated with me. But I think I really led that ship and directed us down a path of him expecting that kind of everything in La Casa was Christine's responsibility.
Yeah. And you changed the rules.
You changed the rules. And now that he works from home and I work from home and I can see him and I'm like, why can't you take out the trash? Why can't you do this? Why can't you intervene with the child? Why can't you do the sign up? And he's like, whoa, wait, where did all this come from? I also don't even know how to do it. Like, I've never done it because you never ever shared information. I didn't share.
He didn't grow into that role. He did not grow into a role where it's natural for him.
And I am throwing a whole lot at him and I'm pissed, which is really not a place to ask someone to come in and partner with you from a place of anger, annoyance, and, well, you haven't been around for 14 years and now all of a sudden you're here. Do it. Do the things. So I would like to actually say, I'm sorry, Oj. That was really not fair, number one. But number two, little by little, he is stepping into things more. I think every person that we know on the East Coast recently got a request for donation to the football team because I asked him to make the list and he really put every person we knew on that list. I'm like, oh, you didn't just make up 20 email addresses for the school? So my son was like a high fundraiser for that one. I was like, well, you did a really good job. I gave him a responsibility. I didn't intervene. And I also, now I can't criticize, right? That's another thing. I'm really good at saying, you do it, and then coming back in and criticizing because it wasn't done the way I would do it. And I'm really learning that that is such an unfair expectation. So, honey, I love you. I'm going to work on it. I know I need to improve a lot of that. So, and I'm also really bossy. So, it's tough.
Which is one of the characteristics I admire and appreciate most about you. So please do not change.
As I was bossing Saphira around this morning about telling her she needs to use the cloud because I don't like things that come in documents with revision after revision documents. So poor Saphira this morning is like, I know, but it just isn't working the way you're
What I said was, is that little picture on my phone with the cloud and the sun on it where I should go? She goes, no, dear, that's the weather today. Visually, that happened.
We're going to get there. We're going to do it. I think I'm going to teach a class.
I am an absolute idiot.
No, I mean, it's so unfair. You didn't start out using the cloud. It came along and we have to
and I have all those email addresses. I have my belly dance email, my cannabis email, my personal email, my married name. Yeah. So Courtney, maybe you can help me sort that out.
Yes, we're going to teach the world how to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Saphira, I have a fun little one for you. My team gets some laughs out of this because my kids speak in a language I don't understand. I'm not sure if Luca does this to you at all.
100%.
Okay. They have these words that I'm like, I don't even know what they mean. Luckily, I'm a TikTok addict. And one of the people that comes up in my TikTok feed often is a middle school teacher who actually explains to us old people what the heck these kids are saying. So
you're going to test me.
I'm going to test you. And Courtney, you can jump in here and help us with this. I'm going to start with one that I think you both know. Okay. So if a kid says, my friend Brian has Riz, what does that mean? Do you know, Saphira?
Well, my son says it a lot. I tried to use it in a sentence the other day and I was wrong. I said, "Are you dripping with Riz?" And he said, "No." But I do believe it means that you have an appeal to other people. And particularly if you are heterosexual, it would be somebody from the opposite sex. And if you were a homosexual, it would be somebody to the same sex. I think that's what it means. Ding, 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 ding,
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, I think it comes from charisma. So I think they took charisma and they made it Riz.
Why didn't someone just tell me that?
I know.
Yeah.
I feel like if I can millennial translate it for us in the heyday, it would have been swag. Remember when that?
Yes.
So that dates me a little bit, but
I don't think we had that word, Christine.
We didn't do as many words. Like we were not, I think these younger generations, it's kind of fun. It's very original.
Language.
To go along with Riz. So a guy who has Riz, I think this is generally used for males, although maybe it can be used for females. Do you know what sigma is?
It is a Greek letter that usually accompanies an alpha and a beta.
Okay, hold on. I'm actually going to make sure I do this right.
It is a Greek letter. I would like a ring point for that. I'm not that much of an idiot.
So I think this was like a play off of alpha, right? You were an alpha male. You were sort of a like cool.
Okay.
Like you're the leader kind of guy. Like we would use alpha male.
Alpha, yeah.
So I think sigma somehow came out of that, but it basically means like a cool dude. Like if you're sigma, you're dominant, you're sort of a leader, you're popular.
It's only for cisgender men?
I think primarily I would love for a correction if I'm wrong on that. Courtney, have you heard sigma?
That one I don't know.
You haven't heard sigma. All right. So this is the one that drives me nuts. And I will tell you, it's just like an adjective that kind of means it doesn't have a super strong one thing it can mean. Have you guys heard of skibbity?
I've heard of it, but I have no idea what it means.
Okay. So it basically...
Skibbity? I don't even think I can barely say it. Okay. Skibbity.
Okay. Skibbity. And it's spelled Skibidi. Okay. So skibbity is like an adjective that's just added onto anything. And it can mean that something is actually really dumb or stupid or cool. So it can be really confusing.
How would you use it in a sentence?
Okay. So my Ronan the other day was embarrassed because he was in the stairwell at school and he's a junior and he's with some friends and he was walking down and up on the third and fourth floors of their high school, there's like no cell service. And so somebody asked him if he had seen something and he's like, "No, I didn't see it because that skibbity service up there on the fourth floor." Meaning shitty service, like there's no cell service. And then he realized there were a bunch of senior girls right behind him. And he's like, "Oh, I'm mortified because they heard me say skibbity." Like, it's more of like a junior high word to use. It's a little immature. And he's like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Like, why did I say skibbity?" But they say it so much that it kind of, and then there's things like Skibbity Ohio Riz, like where they string all these things together. I think Ohio has a very negative connotation. Poor Ohio.
I'm going to actually go and stress test this with my subject matter expert in my home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you're going to ask him if he has Skibbity Ohio Riz. He'll be very upset.
Skibbity Ohio Riz. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got this last one. This is a thing that they do. So if you see a kid sort of sucking in his mouth, like that, which translates really well on a podcast, when everybody can see that I'm sucking.
You're puckering a little bit.
Sort of puckering, but the whole idea is that I'm creating a more specific jawline.
Okay.
Do you know what that's called?
Yeah.
No.
It's called mewing. MEWING. Mewing.
I don't even want to know where that comes from.
There's just too many words for too many very specific things. How did it come up in everyday conversation?
And why would kids be mewing? I think they're trying to create these defined jawlines. I don't know where that comes from, but
Courtney, see what happens when you have a child. You're going to create an entire new generation of who knows what.
Yeah.
Gosh, right? We can't even plan for this stuff. So, all right, I will send you. You're not going to be able to see it because you're not on TikTok. I will try to record a video.
How about a screenshot?
Yes. I will screen record the video.
And then do what my mother calls after you texted me and call me and ask me if I've received the text.
Are you reading my text right
I love
now?
you, Linda.
Oh, I love
it. She'll love that she got a shout out on my podcast.
I love that. Hi, Linda. I'd love to meet you someday.
I got to meet your mom, so you get to meet mine.
That's
I'm
right.
actually taking her and my favorite aunt, Jerry, to Spain in a couple of weeks. I feel like it's going to be 3 generations of girls
I have
in
so much
Mallorca.
fun.
Yes, I'll report back. Maybe we'll do a little podcast from Mallorca and we'll take the background off and let people see my fruit trees.
Oh, yeah. It's so gorgeous there. Definitely. Well, Saphira and my mom and I all got our hair done together the other day. So we had a little coffee time and a hangout. And guess what? No grays.
That's
Look
right.
at us.
That's right.
You never know.
Yeah.
Courtney, should we do a whole
Right
episode
here.
on how to
Right
avoid
here.
the grays?
Forget about children. Let's talk about keeping the facade up that we are not aging. How about that?
Oh,
We filters on Zoom. Thank you, filters on Zoom. Thank you, filters. Now I could actually put a filter on Zoom and I wouldn't have to have makeup. It gives me brows, blush, and lipstick.
And I'm like, oh, I look like I have Botox and I haven't even been lately. I'm like, look at that smooth forehead. Oh, Courtney, it's coming faster than you think. Just be prepared.
Yeah.
Well, this was great. I really appreciate it, Courtney. I hope we helped more than we stressed. I think we've come to a place of at least getting you to come back and tell us a little bit about what you come up with and you and Chris talk about. And I can't wait till the day you tell me you're pregnant because I'm going to get to hold a baby.
Well, I think we should make this a series as well, because I think, Courtney's going to have a perspective. She's got some homework. If other folks have questions, we can say, we're going to answer these 4 questions. We're going to talk about these 4 questions, because I would prefer, rather than presuming that we did it right or we did it all, but just as we just did it. And when people have inquiries or they want to flesh something out that they don't want to flesh out with friends their own age or a parent, because that's a whole other dynamic, is talking to your own mother about this, is to us to be able to be a sounding board for people to feel like they can, again, nothing's off the record. Everything's on the table.
That's right. We'll talk about it all. And just a reminder, you can DM us on Instagram or leave a comment on a post and let us know questions you have and we'll add it.
And Christine can access those because I don't have either of those things yet.
You guys, I'm going to work on her. I'm going to get her on Instagram. But you know what? Here's the fun part. If she's not on Instagram, we can put anything we want on the You'll Thank Us Later channel, Courtney. She won't even know. I mean, wild times we can have over here. We love that. And we just want to say, we hope that you will thank us later and you'll use this information. And just a reminder that the journey ahead is both unpredictable and worthwhile. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, guys.
Have a great week.